Brand new tutorial about Kotlin and all the essential things that you need to know about Kotlin, right? So if you have not yet subscribed me, please subscribe it and support me. And if you have not really followed my previous lecture videos where I have explained my previous some essential concepts about Kotlin, then please follow my previous lecture videos. Otherwise, today my topic of discussion will be generics. So what is generics? Okay, let's go here. If you you can also actually read my blog post, okay, and try to I will provide the link below, the link description below under my video, okay. And generics, okay, in the simple concept, okay, like generic is a type. I mean, like it's a wildcard which can hold any type of object. Okay, it's like a wildcard which can hold any type of object. Okay, so in simple meaning, I mean simple concept. So here today I'm gonna describe about generic class, generic in and out, and generic function. And okay, apart from the theory, let's try to understand is much better what programmatically how do we use generics and what is generics. Okay, how do we create generics? Okay, let's create a generic class. Okay, obviously class, we have a class keyword, name of the class, that is generic class. Okay, you can put any name of the class like and here you specify the generic type of a class using this angle bracket and T symbol, right? So this is the way of creating a generic class. But okay, let's try to understand it much better one step more further. I will try to also make a use case of example. Let me first create a list which is a new table list of generic type, obviously T, and I have two methods, that is get. Actually, let's first set the item of generic type, and what it is doing is adding the item to the list, right? And there is a second method which is getting the in getting an item of index from the list. So get the items of index, right? And that's it. So let's try to see the use case. Okay, let's create a function which is a use generic use case. Okay, and use case. Okay, in this generic use case, what I'm doing is I'm creating a okay, but for that I need to okay, let's create the use case outside, because actually, you know, this is my generic class, and for the use case function generic use case. Okay, here I will provide you the use case, how to use this generic, okay, and what is the beauty of generics. I will try to explain, but first that let me create a class of type apple. Let me place a class ball, class cat. Okay, ABC, apple ball cat. Okay, and okay, so let's create a apples list, I mean like apples, which is of generic class, and we are passing a generic type which is of type of object called apple, right? So sorry, this is the type, and for the moment let's create our list null. Okay, and similarly balls of generic class that is type ball, and also for the moment our list is null, right? And cats generic class which is taking a type cat, and for the moment it's null, right? So you see, like I'm creating a generic class. This is a generic object of generic class but of type apple, whereas this is a generic class of type ball. Okay, I'm passing, you see here, I'm passing this particular object as a generic one, which is actually like generalized here, right? So whenever I change the, it's I change the type, that is cat, then the cat generic type cat is passed here. So it's amazing, guys. So let's try to create a use case like well apple. Let's create an object apple of type apple, ball, and let's create cat, obviously. So how like we can, you see here, so I will try to add like I will try to apples dot set, okay, apple, okay, and this is nullable, so I will do the null check here. Similarly balls set ball, okay, cats set cat. You see, it's amazing, right? And now also you can get the particular like my apple equals to apples dot get, which is of, I need the of index 2, for example, right? You see, like you can also get the access a particular functions from here. Okay, so this is the way how do we use the generic. Okay, like simple explanation, I guess you guys understood about this thing. So it's like a wildcard, where you can pass any type, okay, and you can and the similar type is being passed also here, right? And actually also you see here, it's like yeah, you don't need to actually specify this one type also, because actually it's also automatically like okay, because it's just getting the objective from here. So that's it, guys, cool. And I guess I explained you about this generic class. Now let's try to understand about in our second topic was generic in and out. So what is generic in and out? Okay, so it's class, let's create AAA of okay, let me create a generic in, no, let's create generic out first. Generic out, it's a class. Okay, as you see, the generic class is out class is this one, but how do we create a generic out class is by using this specific keyword called out. Okay, and for generic in, let's create an interface called generic in, and is we use a keyword called gen in, and that's it. Okay, interface has some functions like do something, and let's try to implement this interface generic in. Okay, so how do we use this generic in class, and how do we specify? You see, the basic idea of generic in out is like it is gonna return this kind of a object, okay, like of this type, whereas for generic in is like it's gonna take this input like of generic type t, like this is the type is getting input from here, whereas this generic out is returning that this generic type. So as you see here, we need this type, right? It's asking for a type expected. That means generic in input is trying to get the type. If you see here, in types can be passed into an object, whereas out types is like can only be passed out of an object or return. So this out type is returning the out type, whereas generic in is taking the input. So for the moment I can pass here a string, right? And let's implement the interface. And okay, as you see here, it's returning this like it's taking this generic in is taking the type as an int, like a string. And for generic out var let's see how to use that generic out. Okay, actually you see the out is the return. My return type will be int, for example. So it's gonna return this generic of type int. So this class is gonna return int. Okay, so that's the idea of generic in and out. Okay, I guess I explained some, yeah, the interesting things. And okay, so what is generic function finally? So generic functions are functions of generic type t, right? So it's a simple meaning, right? So let's create a simple function here. Generic function. And how do we do the generic function? Is like we specify the type here of generic type here. Okay, so this is how we create a generic function, okay, which is of taking a input of generic type t. And let's doing something like, let's see, print. It's printing something. Okay, also if you see here, we can also specify generic type t here. And obviously we have to do the another override. And you see here, the idea is like this generic type t will be a string, because it's taking the input as a generic input is taking a string. So this type will be the same input type that we have done here, right? So this will be doing returning a string. Okay, so yeah, this is also a generic function. And to use the generic function, type parameter passed before. Okay, before to use, like we use the type parameter is passed before the name of the function. To call the function, we specify the type argument after the name of the function. So let's try to use that. Okay, let's try to use it here. Okay, value generic function. Okay, you see here it's asking me the type, and obviously it's gonna be a string. So you see, like it's asking me we have to pass, to use the function we have to pass uh, the type here. Okay, and to declare the generic function, we declare the type here. All right guys, so that's the pretty basic stuff about generic, all the things about generics. And okay, finally I forgot to explain you about in this thing that like ins and out, like generic in and out, it has some special property that this generic in and out cannot be called in a function. For example, I cannot declare generic out here in a function of type. It can be only declared in a class or an interface. Okay, so if you see here, it's giving me an error. Variance annotations are only allowed to for type parameters of classes and interface. Okay, so this is the concept that you have to understand. And I guess I explained all the important concepts about generics. And if you have any questions, you can just comment me below. And that's it. Thank you.